The American Soybean Association's Conservation Legacy Awards are brought to you by Nutrien. Nutrien's commitment to growing the world from the ground up means taking our role in protecting the planet seriously. Nutrien, feeding the future.
All week, we've introduced you to regional winners of the American Soybean Association's Conservation Legacy Awards. Now, one of those regional recipients was ultimately named an overall national winner. In 2022, that honor goes to Wayne and Ruth Fredericks of Osage, Iowa.
Wayne Fredericks calls himself the accidental conservationist. When he started farming back in 1973, he believed a fully conventional tillage operation was the only way to go. But after nearly 20 years, Mother Nature stepped in and upended those plans on his northern Iowa farm.
But 30 years ago, this particular month, we froze up and we couldn't plow our corn stalks. I said plow our corn stalks because at that time, that was part of our production system. We plowed our corn stalks and we worked our bean ground ahead of our corn and soybeans. And so that winter, I was pondering what to do, and I happened to run across an article about a young gentleman that was no-tilling soybeans in southwest Minnesota. That caught my attention. I mentioned it to my John Deere dealer, and long story short, he got a drill in that spring that we could rent and try, and it worked well. They grew well. They yielded well, they looked good, and that was important to my dad. He lived on the highway. And from that point forward, I was an instant no-tiller of soybeans.
Strip-till corn came about a decade after no-till. The technology evolved and showed promise on the 756-acre farm. Frederick says his goal became one of setting an example for other farmers by successfully showing that no-till and cover crops work, sharing information he learned, and trying to make a difference on a large scale.
It wasn't until, about 2012 that we started working with cover crops, and we were doing experimental work for the Iowa Soybean Association, their on-farm network, and trying to learn what worked, when to plant, how thick to plant, how to terminate, what effect on yields and so forth. And I knew that we could reduce nitrates with cover crops, and so I became a passionate advocate, and we went to 100% adoption of cover crops that fall.
And beyond the benefit to crops, Fredericks places great importance on the bigger picture of conservancy.
We've been a good adopter of pollinator habitat and in strategically located places. In fact, this is one of those habitats that we have here. And so we've done some profitability analysis on all of our farms, and we found some of those spots that, in a corn bean rotation weren't necessarily always profitable, and if we could put them into a conservation practice such as CRP, we could achieve some benefits that, number one, improved our bottom line profitability, but number two, provided some wonderful habitat for, monarchs and other species.
Bottom line, he says he's learned that what you do on your land shouldn't just stay there.
And I've just kind of put myself out there as, walk the talk. We're going to adopt these conservation practices. We're going to learn how to make them work, and then share that information and data with fellow farmers and hope that we can create a bigger community of conservation in this part of the country.